DE&I, unfortunately, has come under a lot of, political attack. DE&I is nothing but the human element, seeing people for who they are and where they are, and making sure that we're implementing those practices in our daily policies.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of the Multifamily Mind. I'm your host, Steve Wunsch, and joining me today is Liz Newkirk. I'm very excited to have Liz here. She is the manager of digital media at Loebsack & Brownlee, located in Charlotte, North Carolina. Originally from Atlanta, Liz has a background in digital marketing and analytics and is the co-author and co-founder of DEI strategies, awards, and scholarships throughout North Carolina. Liz attended Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, where she majored in business with a specialization in marketing. She holds several certifications, including organizational culture and diversity and legal environment from Arizona State University, and a DEI certification from the University of South Florida, which she obtained in 2021. In 2020, Liz completed a social media and digital marketing certificate from Clemson University, and she is also certified in Agile Project Management by the Project Management Institute and has an equal employment opportunity certification from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC. A well-regarded national speaker, Liz has held leadership roles such as being the first woman of color to ever serve as the GCAA, which is the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association, president of the Suppliers Council. She's also secretary of the GCAA Board of Directors, also serves as the Education Foundation Board of Directors treasurer for the GCAA. Apart from her involvement in the GCAA, she's the chair of the Apartment Association of North Carolina DEI Committee, the vice chair of the AANC Suppliers Council, and the inaugural chair of the SCAA South Carolina Apartment Association Marketing and PR Committee. Liz has won the Social Media of the Year Award 6 times. She's been named the 2021 GCAA Volunteer of the Year recipient, the 2021 Supplier Partner of the Year, for USAA, the 2022 Triangle Apartment Association DEI Champion of the Year, and the 2023 National Apartment Association Excellence Award finalist. In 2024, Liz was inducted into the class of 2024 Top 50 Women to Know in North Carolina by Know Women Media. She's a passionate creative who loves Beyonce, dance, Starbucks, and Tarjay. Welcome to the show, my dear.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. That's quite the intro.
Thank you very much.
You should be very proud of yourself.
Yes, but the fact that my family is proud of me makes it even better.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, they must be very proud. And I can't tell you how impressive that list of accolades and accomplishments is, because, in your space, you really have to be, you can't just fly by the seat of your pants. You have to be well educated. You have to be continually renewing your education in terms of what's happening at your firm, as well as what's happening in the world of DEI, which we're going to get into in just a split second. But
yes.
Yeah, very impressive. I mean, that was a great intro.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Steve. And thank you so much for having me here.
You bet. So how did you get started with the whole, tell our audience a little bit about Loebsack & Brownlee and what you guys do there so that they understand kind of where your role fits in there?
Sure. So I've been at Loebsack & Brownlee now, getting ready to go on 5 years, starting in September. We are based here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we only do one thing, and that is making sure that we provide a quality, elevated experience for our clients. And we mainly focus and solely focus on evictions. And you can definitely learn more about that at a very new and revamped website that I'm very proud of, if you can't tell, at loebsackbrownlee.law. Very happy to be under the leadership and mentorship of Chris Loebsack. He's our managing principal here. Someone else who is very involved inside of our multifamily industry. And I'm just super happy to be a part of an organization that's so passionate about education and just providing a quality experience throughout the Carolinas and Virginia.
Very cool. We'll make sure that we have a link to the website in the show notes so that folks know how to look you up and see what you're doing. So
Oh
very cool.
yes, oh yes, and of course they're also in my home state, the Peach State, which is Georgia. So I'm very excited about that. Shout out to the GA.
What a fun place to play, the world of evictions, huh?
Oh, yes, it's very interesting. That is for sure. But, we're very passionate about educating our clients on fair housing, domestic violence issues. We're getting ready to come up in October in one of our biggest campaigns that we've done just about almost 10 years now. We've raised a little over $10,000 in, domestic violence awareness and education throughout the Carolinas and Georgia. And so, again, I'm just super passionate and just super excited to be a part of an organization that is so involved in giving back. We've done work with Clemson and making sure that we provide people the opportunity to take the LSATs and providing them scholarship opportunities. And so, yeah, it's just amazing. Like we only focus on evictions, but we're very passionate and involved inside of our community as well.
I love that. And I love your involvement in your apartment associations. It's for a supplier partner, that's a really important position to take, because then it really does truly show that you want to be a partner on more levels than just what your business can do for an operator, right?
Oh, most definitely. The best way that you can serve your clientele is being able to understand where they are, what the issues it is that they're dealing with. And I will say that is one of the biggest advantages that Lovesac and Brownlee has is most of the members of our firm actually have a multifamily background. I myself worked on site for a multiple of years being a regional marketing director, started as a leasing agent, or
awesome.
leasing, personnel. I don't know what terminology they use these days, but, at my time, it was a leasing agent. And so, the majority of our people, our support staff, that's where they come from. And our attorneys are involved with the apartment association. So they're very well aware and well versed in, what our clientele and owner operators are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And I will say out of a multitude of things of the LV Advantage, that's something that makes us very unique.
Yeah, I would say that's a really great competitive advantage, because not many firms can say that. And,
right.
It's important as a supplier that you keep your thumb on the pulse of your client's world. And, having that background really does give you what I call street credit, because
yes.
what it's like to sit in that seat and how to, try to help someone through an eviction and try to make the process as seamless as possible. And sometimes it's not easy, right?
Oh, no, it's not. The mental health and the mental well-being of our owner operators is definitely something at the forefront and a conversation that has been had, especially after the pandemic. People have bigger and better, maybe even demands than what they had before. And so, a lot of owner operators are trying to figure out how to meet those demands and how to make sure that everybody has a, inclusive and lovely, residential experience. And so because we understand that, we definitely lead with a empathetic thought mindset and, process. And so it's just one of those things, like you said, that gives us that street cred. I love that. Gives us the street cred to be able to empathize, with our clientele.
Empathy is such a powerful tool. I remember a number of years ago, I was working for Aimco at the time, and we had a property in the Jacksonville market where someone at the property was, managing a resident through the eviction process. And when it was all said and done, she got flowers and a card from that resident that said, "We're really sorry that we had to put you through that. You were amazing. Thank you for being kind, and thank you for being patient." So, that process, though it's ugly and it's not fun for anybody, it can turn into something that is, a little bit more customer centric if you, if you have that empathy in action and you do the right thing.
And that's definitely where the education comes into play is, fair housing and making sure that, everybody is armed with equal information and opportunity to be able to have a quality experience. Most of the times people think of attorneys as cold, and non-human, sometimes TV shows like Suits, don't really help, but I like to say like our attorneys and our team and our staff are some of the most kindest people that you will ever meet. They're definitely passionate and full aware of their job and, what it is that we have to do. But, it's about a collaborative experience. We've given money to crisis assistance ministries through the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association golf tournament. We sponsor the executive poll just about every year. And so, we're fully aware, you know what I mean? We definitely keep our finger on the pulse, as you mentioned before. But we're all in here to understand and navigate together.
That's very cool. And I'm sure you guys were a great resource during all those eviction moratoriums and helping managers and owner operators navigate that. That was an ever changing landscape. And it's still, I think there's still some tail end reverberation happening in some of the different markets that are out there still. But I'm sure your folks were very happy to have you as a partner.
Oh, yes. And we're very happy to have them and have their back and be able to navigate it all together.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I'm kind of excited to sort of get into the meat and potatoes here today because we actually met each other at the National Apartment Association's Apartmentalize in Philadelphia. Yes. And I got really excited to have you on because I know you've got a passion for the DE&I space, how it impacts marketing, and your experience and the way that you are involved in your community there, I think will be a really great learning opportunity for our listeners as well. Let's talk a little bit. So coming into the conversation before we hit record, you and I were kind of talking a little bit about some of the changing landscape. I know DE&I used to just be DE or DI, diversity and inclusion, and then they added equity. And then they added B. Then they added B for belonging, right? So, and there's allyship is an A, and there's a few other letters that are out there. But you told me something that really kind of shocked the bejesus out of me. Let's share that with the listening audience. What happened with SHRM just recently?
Yes, as you can see, I kind of have to take a swig because it's
what's in that sippy cup? Is that some?
It's like, let me go ahead and just prepare for this. So, Steve, I keep a pulse on DE&I. I'm very passionate about it. And of course, so is the firm. It's definitely something that we've talked about, here at Loebsack and Brownlee, but also with all of our affiliates that we're involved in. 2020 was definitely a year of social unrest and social injustice, where we had to have a coming together, meeting of the minds. And I sat in on the task force with the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association and, just really worked with everyone to try to understand what can we do as an association and how can we assist our members to, create a diverse and equitable, environment, and how can we educate everyone on, what DE&I really means. Oftentimes DE&I comes to one thing, and that is the social construct of race, right? They mostly think that it is a black and white thing. And even in my education and understanding, it is way more nuanced than that. There is a lot more that goes into it. And so one of the resources that I often use to make sure that I'm using accurate data and information is through SHRM. SHRM is the Society for Human Resources Management. And in looking at their papers and looking at what it is that they're doing, I follow their newsletters, information, anything it is that they can give out, mostly to HR professionals. And HR professionals are, representatives of the company. They often manage employees. I call them the people managers, right? Sure. And what happened basically on July 22nd, 2024, according to HRdive.com, was that SHRM actually dropped the E that stands for equity from its diversity, equity, and inclusion platform. And basically what they say, and I quote, is to hyper focus on the things that people understand rather than issue a broader statement on the meaning of equity, a conversation that SHRM views as a quote unquote distraction from DE&I work more generally. And this was coming from the CEO of SHRM, who released a statement that basically said that he felt as though that after looking at data and analytics, that it was somewhat complicated to really understand how to implement equity inside of a organizations or business policies. Yeah. Now, Steve, I will say that DE&I, just like anything, when you're putting together organizational policies or HR policies, is not the easiest thing to do, right? But
Right.
the fact that SHRM dropped something that is so valuable that allows for people to be able to have, a more inclusive workplace where they feel as though that, like you mentioned before, they belong, it's just kind of astounding. There was a lot of HR pushback from HR professionals, DE&I
Yeah.
professionals, and the like that are just like, you know, DE&I unfortunately has come under a lot of, political attack. And for SHRM, the one to be able to kind of be like the all guard, if that makes sense, for DE&I to drop the E is just really astounding. And it's kind of taken me aback, as I'm sure many people or professionals that work in this space.
Yeah. I mean, did you see my face? I mean, I was like, what?
Right. Yes.
And
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can see the gray area because, and somebody explained it to me. I can't remember who it was. It was either Marcy French or it might have been Alicia Anderson. There are two people in my universe who are in that same space with DE and I. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, if I'm short and my daughter's tall and you give us both the same stool,
Mm-hmm.
that's equity, but I'm still
Mm-hmm.
at a disadvantage because she on
Correct.
that now much more taller than me. If you gave
Yes.
me a stool that made me as tall as she was,
Mm-hmm.
equally tall,
Mm-hmm.
then
Yes.
that's where equality happens.
Yes.
And I think because of that, interpretation is, subjective a lot of times with many companies.
Yeah. I mean, what it really boils down to is asking the people what it is that they want and
Yeah.
what it is that they need in order to be able to succeed. And oftentimes, I understand if you have an organization that is like 500 people plus, that can
Yeah.
be a little difficult. But when HR professionals and CEOs and, people or persons of operational procedures are trained on inclusive practices and they understand how to implement those inclusive practices in their day-to-day operation, then you remove some of those challenges. It is something as simple as looking at the fact that there are some, those that identify as women or, working moms that may need the flexibility in order to be able to work from home. The
For
same
sure.
thing
Yeah.
can be said, about a veteran, or a new upcoming dad or someone that is potentially taking care of a parent. So when we're saying, we want an equitable workplace, these are some of the very small examples that we're talking about is the
Yep.
ability for me to be able to be a human first inside of your workplace. And I think oftentimes something that kind of really concerns me is we've forgotten that human beings show up to work every single day.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that they have this outline of a checklist of things that they're supposed to do on a regular and a daily basis. And just the empathy and the room for grace has just been removed, And I think that we really need to get back to center and really understanding that DE&I is nothing but the human element. It is adding the human element in the workplace, seeing people for who they are and where they are, and making sure that we're implementing those practices in our daily policies. It's not super extreme. I'm not going to remove the challenges from it and say, oh, Steve, it's so easy, everybody can do it. No, that's not true. You know what I mean? Not every business model makes it super easy in order for you to be able to implement it, but it is possible. And just like anything else, it can be done. You just have to make sure that the people that are asking for you to be able to create those equitable and inclusive and diverse workspaces have just as much buy-in as the people, at the type and vice versa.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that human resources, and here we are trying to learn how to bring humanity into the equation.
Human resources. It's in the name. It's in the title. Like, make it make sense.
Hello. Hi, folks. I wanted to take a quick 30-second break so that I could say, I hope you're enjoying today's episode, which couldn't be brought to you without being superpowered by Sales Mail. I mean, really, we couldn't produce this content without them. Sales Mail is the easiest and best tool for sending personalized video via email, text, and CRM. So, if you really are enjoying today's episode, it would mean a lot to me if you would visit salesmail.com so you can check out how our solutions might impact your business communications. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn as well. Okay, that's enough. Now back to the conversation. How has your understanding of I guess we're going to have to call it DI now, right? Or what is it going to be called?
I refuse to remove the equity. I'm going to keep the equity in there as someone who has created scholarships with the Apartment Association of North Carolina for people who typically wouldn't be able to attend our conferences and get that educational information and network. I just refuse to remove the E. I think that it is extremely valuable and something that we just need to continue to move forward with going forward.
How you doing? That's a great approach and a great perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that those that are listening will take stock of that, because, whether SHRM acknowledges it or not, it's still
Right.
such an important piece of, and, I think for multifamily folks, we've been scared straight with fair housing since we leasing people, and I think because we've got that lens that we see the world through, that it has to be equal and it has to be, the fair treatment of everyone means we treat everyone the same, regardless of, those 7 protected classes or however many there are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we'll probably have a bit of an easier time with that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's a very interesting. I'm just shocked that they would even think about.
I know. I mean, it's something as simple as, implementing some of the marketing piece here. I'm sure millions of Americans are on TikTok. And so, I'm scrolling through TikTok, and one of the things that completely flabbergasted me was that there's a ton of not even influencers, but a lot of people that are moving to where I now reside in Charlotte. And, they're like, hey, I'm in Charlotte. I'm getting ready to move to Charlotte from, let's say, Austin, Texas. I'm getting ready to go on tour. Look at these apartments with me. And I mean, they're touring your apartment, sometimes going live on TikTok. And they're getting hundreds of thousands of views. One of the videos that I saw was she had 11,100 views. And this was in the span of like maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Wow.
Like, they are now taking, the control and really saying, like, this is a real world view. People want authenticity as much as possible, but this is a real world view into like what your apartment community looks like. How amazing would it be if, when you're going on tour, you're having these conversations, you say, I'd really like to communicate with you, but before we get started, can you just let me know how to properly identify you? What are your pronouns? As you can see, like mine say she, her, hers. So that way, you know what my pronouns are. The marketing people, if that's who's over your name tags or your nameplates, just like what we do here at LopeSac, when somebody onboards, it's right there in the onboarding information. Let me know what your pronouns are, so that way you can be properly addressed. So that way we can make sure we're inclusive as possible. It takes less than 30 seconds,
Sure.
to do something like that. And when we do things like that, what we find, especially with Generation Z, Gen Z is the most empathetic generation in our nation's history, right? And so they're looking for people to portray that empathy and to see them for who they are and where they are as much as possible. And fair housing does nothing but, amplify that, if that makes sense, right?
Sure.
When we're talking about protections of the LGBTQIA plus community, these are some of the things that we need to adapt in order to be able to see people, and not just our employees, but also potential residents or tenants, as we say in the legal world. So it's really just looking at things with an inclusive lens, making sure that we're having open conversations. And while I understand that it's very, at times can be complex, having the diversity and maybe even, to SHRM's point, the equitable conversation, it's asking, well, what can we do in a 1 month, in a 2 month, in a quarterly or a yearly span? A lot of the things with DE&I is people get frustrated because, we want the results right now. We see people say, well, businesses are more likely to succeed with DE&I practices right now. And everybody's like, I want to see it right now. And that's not the way that it works. You're talking about unraveling decades, if not years, of thought processes and bias, and even internal bias, right? There was a practice and a study that was done by some psychologists when we were talking about the integration of schools, and Thurgood Marshall used this in his argument for the Supreme Court. And it was talking about, how do Black kids see themselves? And I often use this, if anyone has attended any of my classes, whether it's in South Carolina, in North Carolina, or even with NAA, that I show them this test that has recently been redone across the globe. And oftentimes, Black and brown kids will point at, the black doll because they give them a black doll and they give them a white doll. And they ask them, well, which one do they resonate with the most? Which one is the good doll? Which one is the bad doll? And most of the times they will point to the white doll as being the good doll, but they'll point to the black doll as being the bad doll. And even themselves being people of color, they point to the black doll being the bad doll. So it's like we have to work on adopting an ideology that removes away from the internal biases that we ourselves have adopted and really look at people in all of the little complexities that they come with, right? I can be Black, I can be trans and a veteran all at the same time. I can be Black, I can be gay and be disabled all at the same time. All of these can be true. So what can we do as managers, as leaders in this industry to create an inclusive place where people can feel seen and they can show up as their best selves? That's the goal.
Yeah, that is. I mean, and to be able to work in an environment where you feel like you can come to work and be authentically you.
Yes.
Man, that's talk about a benefit, to work for an organization that prioritizes that. And, it's funny because I'm a little bit older, and my parents, of course, were from the generation where they just didn't understand what's happening now in terms of, all the different types of people that are out there. And I think we have to think about, educating the different generations in different ways. Like I couldn't have expected my parents were in their 80s when they passed. And, I'm gay and I kept that to myself for a long time because I knew based on how I was raised that my folks would not approve.
Right.
And, finally they kind of came around, but there were still some bias in place that really impeded my ability to really show up authentically me.
Yes.
Not like I'm showing up at their house dressed in, a full drag or anything like that. But, just the mere fact that, my partner and I had to stay in separate rooms when we were under their roof. And my partner my ex-partner would get so ticked off about that. But I was like, it's their house and I can't expect them to overnight change 60 years of programming that's been their way. And I think that's why I think that equity piece is so important because we have to help people understand that it's important. It matters to people to be seen as who they are, not who you expect them to be or who you think they should be, but who they are.
Yes. And I'm all about getting everyone on board, but I'm also all about making sure as DE&I facilitators and, people that are out here, doing the good work, getting into good trouble, as we say, also protecting their mental health, fatigue is real, DE&I fatigue is real. And that's just because, you're just fighting and fighting and fighting. And it's not even just for you to be seen. It's maybe for your friends and your allies to be seen. I remember the first time that we had the name tags at the AENC conference where you were able to put your pronoun like on your name tag, and I had somebody come up to me with tears in their eyes and they're like, with this little thing, I feel so seen, and they were somebody that just recently came out. So to allow for them to be able to do that and getting to that space and be able to be their authentic selves, I mean, it means the world to me, Yeah. And it's not an easy feat, Steve. I've had to have some really, really tough conversations. I've had to work overtime to really understand, especially the LGBTQIA, plus community and really understand what they're going through and even the disabled community, right? I think I read somewhere and I could be, misinterpreting this. Well, not misinterpreting, but maybe the data may be a little off, but I know it was over 50% of DE&I programs oftentimes do not have disability included inside. And when I looked at the conference, multiple conferences that I attended, I'm like, what can we do differently? Who's missing here, right? And one of the things that we made sure was people were aware of is like, hey, if you're a mom, or you need to be able to pump, there's pump stations available for you. So that way you can attend the conference and you can also have a private area for you to be able to, do what you need to do for you and your little one. And then we also implemented American Sign Language translators. So we were able to have translators, at least on the main stage, So that way, if someone is deaf or hard of hearing, they could sit a little bit closer. Maybe if they were visually impaired, they could sit a little bit closer to the stage. We had a reserved table for them. And we also hired speakers, for them to be able to come in and, interpret the message that was being given off of the main stage. Was it easy? No. But did we get it done? Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, that's what matters. And that's what really fills my heart. I have to really thank AENC for giving me space and opportunity to be able to do that, because it really starts with someone saying, you know what, I'm with you, and let's figure out how we can do it together.
Love it. I love it. Mm-hmm. And I just love, it's kind of sad that we have to have that much thought put toward and it's like pushing a rock uphill, and it shouldn't be, because everybody deserves their fair shot at that experience. And I agree. And a friend of mine, you probably should network with her. Her name is Alicia Anderson.
Okay.
And her platform is Disabling Ableism. She has very much an affinity for what you're saying is true, that even companies that have well thought out DE&I strategies don't consider the impact that the experience needs to be for someone who has a physical or a mental or a visual or a hearing disability. So, even the hiring process, we don't even think about, there's a question on the app that makes us an EEOC that says, do you have any special accommodations or, things that we need to consider? And people are afraid to answer those questions because they feel like if they divulge that piece of personal information, that it's going to disqualify them for the role.
Yes. And I think what the biggest thing that, we have to do, and this is how the marketing piece comes into your hiring and just your overall company and brand persona is that you have to really give them an authentic view, an authentic lens into who you and your organization are, right?
Yep.
And, one of the things that I've made sure that we've done here is that we've always put the people first, right? And so you can see how we're involved. You can see the accolades and, the promotions and all of the things that people are doing. And, when someone is looking at us in our firm and they're looking at us in our business, they're saying, well, I looked at your social media page and it looked like a fun, a diverse and amazing place to go, because people love to see themselves. And, I really think that we should look at our marketing strategy and our branding and really remove the stock images. I mentioned this when I spoke at the AENC conference last year. And it's like, remove the stock images. Show, who your teams are. Show who your corporate professionals are. Right. And when you show who the people are from the top to the bottom, or from the bottom to the top, however you want to do it, when you provide that transparency, it builds trust. So even when you're saying, hey, like, I would like for you to fill out this survey to really know how we as an organization are doing, the more that they get to know the people that information is being related to, the easier it is to build that trust. But if I have no idea who corporate people are, or anytime it is that they show up at my property, it's something, something's wrong, something needs to be fixed. I remember that feeling, the pit at the bottom of my stomach. And I'm like, sounds good. Is everybody doing a proper greeting? Is everybody doing what they need to do? But it's like, my regional manager, like, she would show up and she's like, hey, I'm literally just here just to check in, see how you're doing, and just make sure I provide you all of the resources. If she asked me, to do a survey and she says, I'm genuinely, authentically asking, there is no retaliation here, that makes me a little bit more comfortable. That gives me a little bit more of a level of comfortability and trust to be able to answer those questions in an authentic way. You cannot create a DE&I strategy, or a marketing strategy for that, rather, if no one's going to answer it, truthfully. But the only way that you're going to do that is if you create an open environment where people feel comfortable in doing so. So it really starts with that trust element.
Yeah, you have to build an environment of trust in order for people to really give you the real story, That's a great point to make, because, so much emphasis is put on like a corporate website and the About Us page that lists all the corporate officers, and it's all a headshot that's real professional. There's nothing wrong with that piece of it. But to your point, I think especially the generation that is in the workplace and in the marketplace for, multifamily living now, they
Right.
really are seeking that authenticity.
Oh, most
And
definitely. Yeah. And for our supplier partners, like you couldn't do a better thing for yourself than going out there and showing who you are.
yeah.
And, even if you're an introvert, I'm an extroverted introvert, with an introverted heart, but, like I show like what it is that I'm doing and where I'm going with my family and my involvement. And it allows for people to be able to relate to me,
Yeah.
in a way that when I have a conversation with them, they know that if Beyonce has an album drop, I am the first person there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you want to catch me, you can catch me at Target, with a thing of Starbucks in my hand. I love my dog. Like I've had her for 10 years now. I'm the oldest of 8. I am an HBCU band fanatic. I was a dancer in the band, like all the way from high school, all the way through college. I love the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. I just think that they are just like phenomenal. And so like these are the things that I post and that allows for people to be able to relate or to understand me. And there's a lot more variables. My boyfriend is a chef and he's a Marine Corps veteran of 20 years. So it's like there's all of these things, that people can connect with me about and that we can talk about that is nothing to do with work. But at
Right.
the end of the day, like it makes me a relatable person. And when you do little things like day in the life spotlight, or my favorite TikTok trend is like, hey, can you watch my boss real quick? And I'm always like, oh, I wonder who their boss is, and it's like Ann Wintour of Vogue or, like whoever. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. It's like something that small, where it's like the boss takes the camera for a second and they're like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. Everybody knows that Chris loves Batman. If you go through our social media platforms, you are 9 times out of 10 going to see him in some Batman related, thing, but it makes him relatable. You know what I mean? Like that's his thing.
Yeah.
That's what he likes, so it's one of those things where, again, going back to the conversation we had earlier when it comes to DE&I, just embedding that human element. The more that we embed that human element, the better it works for all of us. In terms of our business and operational and growth strategies. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Mm-hmm.
And that's so those in the audience who are listening that are, in the C-suite or in the regional manager and above suite, really take heart to this message that Liz is sharing, because, the world that we're serving now is in dire need of authenticity. They're in dire need of being seen for who they are, not for who you expect them to be. Mm-hmm. And, anything that you as a leader can do to humanize yourself, to, share so many corporate level folks are buttoned up so tight because they keep work and home very separate. Mm-hmm. But I see so much success in people who do what you are suggesting in like Tony Sousa,
Oh, yes.
He shares all kinds of, different sides of his life, and it's not all peaches and cream. He's gone through struggles. He's been right there with all of us, but it really has. I mean, he's got 15,000 followers or something ridiculous, and it's because people are drawn to that. Mm-hmm. Someone who shows more than just their, headshot on the corporate page.
And they can relate, you know what I mean? It's like, the different platforms can serve you in different ways, right? And so your, I guess you could say, personal strategy for Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn will all vary. Twitter, if that's you, but it's one of those things where it's like you just kind of have to figure out what message and what works for you. My Facebook stories and occasionally my Instagram stories make no sense. It is whatever I find hilarious. You know what I mean? If I find something funny, I love, there's this one guy, he does the Arnold Schwarzenegger voiceovers, and it's like, Prince or, it's Elvis Presley dancing or whatever. And he does like this little voiceover. I find it hilarious, and other people may not, but I put it in my stories, and it's like, given this time, with everything going on, Steve, like some people just need good news. Some people just need something to laugh at. I posted on my Facebook, Mickey marching in with a HBCU band at the Disney convention. And I'm like, this is so cute. Like, this is so amazing. Like, this is awesome. And it puts a smile on everybody's face.
Yep.
and it's like sometimes people just want some good, wholesome, content
Yeah.
that just really shows, how beautiful the world really is and how amazing the human connection and the human element is.
Yep.
And that takes, again, less than 30 seconds. And if you do that and implement it in an individual brand strategy, but in a company, organizational brand strategy, it's very rare that I say I can guarantee some things, but I guarantee you that it works.
I would agree 100%. Stop being such a stuffed shirt, right? Now I will put it out there that, your company probably has a social media policy in place.
Yes.
And I remember back a few iterations ago, we were getting purchased by another company. So a bunch of us were getting laid off, and we did a few, clinics on helping people to, get their LinkedIn profiles together. And
Yes.
one of the cartoons that I used to lead that session off was a guy across the desk from a C-suite person in a job interview. And the C-suite guy's got his paper in hand, and he says, "Well, according to your LinkedIn profile, you are the consummate professional. But according to Facebook, you like Jack Daniels and you're very comfortable with your body." We do have to be careful, but I think it's so cool to be able to show a little bit of who you are as a person. And it's funny, and I know that the younger generation does this way more than I do. But now when I get connection requests and things from people, like I'll look at their LinkedIn, and then I'll sometimes even search for them on Facebook just to see like what kind of person are they before I say yes to the dress and connect with them,
Oh yeah, definitely. It's something that's happening, in the hiring process.
Yep.
And, I believe that, you have the right to be able to express yourself on your social media platforms. But what we have to remember in the multifamily industry, probably just like any other industry, I have a manufacturing marketing background. So I can say like more so in this realm than in that one,
Yes.
but the relationship building, you know what I mean? It's a really, really big element. And I make sure that people that are in the up and coming and they're looking to find a way to be able to break in, into these rooms, whether it's a board of directors or whether it's, as a chairperson or whether it's, even in your own company, you want to get to the next level. People want to feel as though that they can relate to you. And for our suppliers, it's like, people don't want to just do business because you have a good product or you come in at a good price. They want to do business with someone that they feel like they know. Right. I've had conversations with people just solely about music. I am a total music nerd, right? And it's like we have conversations and it's just, texting you, did you see, especially when the Kendrick Lamar and Drake, battle was going on, it was like, are you team Drake? Are you team Kendrick? You know what I mean? And so we were having conversations about that. And then it's like, hey, by the way, I have a question about so on and so forth. When it happens organically, when it happens naturally, those are the best conversations, but it's like, if I don't trust myself and my expertise and who I am, but also I can't emphasize enough that I didn't become the person I am today without doing the work in the dark,
Right.
When nobody was looking at me, when nobody was really paying attention to me, I was just Liz Newkirk, the leasing agent, getting cookies from this lovely lady that would come to our leasing office every Tuesday. I miss her to death. I'm just telling you, I loved her cookies. They were so good. But, when I was just that person, I was doing a lot of reading. I was doing a lot of researching, which is why I believe wholeheartedly in remaining a student. The moment that you know everything and the moment that you know too much, it's just like, just end it. You know what I mean? Like, just let it go, and one of my favorite things that I'm going to paraphrase here from Eartha Kitt is, she's like, the tombstone will be not my diploma. At the end of the day, I will stop learning when, whoever it is that you believe in calls me home. And at that moment, I believe that when I remain a student and I remain studious to what people tell me, whether I agree with it or not, I think like that is the thing that really allows for us as individuals and people that are representatives in this industry to be able to really grow and move forward. That's how I built my relationships. That's how I really got to where I am today. And, wherever the next step may be, I always have to be open to information. And so, doing that and just having that mindset has really served me well in the end.
Yeah. And, when you talk about learning, it's not necessarily all about education and and head knowledge. What about learning about others? I think the world would be in a
Oh,
lot better
yes.
place if we would, I like to use the word curiosity versus judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's been mentioned on a couple of different episodes. And I just think if the world were more curious and less judgy, it
Yes.
would be such a much more fun place to be, because it's not too fun anymore.
Most definitely. I mean, I grew up in a, very diverse backgrounds, like my nieces and nephews. Some of them are Indian, some of them are, have Mexican heritage, some of them have Native American Indian heritage. And it's like, I grew up in a very, very diverse, background. And, one of the things that my grandmother really taught me very early on is, to understand and to look at people with a curious mind. It's like,
Yeah.
well, why do you do that? One of the biggest lessons I learned was, I remember we had this group of women that came in from another country, and they, didn't really know and understand English too well. Thank goodness for Google Translate, because I was like, I don't know how to translate and speak this language, so it's like, what can I do that's going to work out best? And
Yep.
so we were able to communicate. And I remember like the following day, they came in and they brought me like some real like authentic, it's like a cabbage, like a cabbage and onion type soup or something like that. And they brought me in like a honey like pie. It was delicious. It was so good. And it was like me just having a authentic and curious, like you said, like frame of mind, and just really trying to understand like who they are, where they come from, that allowed for me to be able to provide them a home, provide them a place to live. And I think that when we have an open mind, when we go to conferences like Apartmentalize or, Assembly of Delegates, which is getting ready to come up here really soon, it allows for us to be able to see things from a different perspective. When you're in those rooms, that's like one of the few opportunities you can get to speak to people from all over the country. And you can learn like the ways that they're navigating their businesses and maybe even the struggles that they're dealing with. And even just personally, I've developed some lifelong friendships. I cannot tell you, Steve, the way that especially members of, our industry and of the GCAA really showed up for me in a really, really difficult time. It was maybe about this time last year that, my boyfriend's sister died tragically in a car accident, unexpectedly. And she had an 11-year-old daughter, and we ended up adopting her, my boyfriend and I. And, you don't know when your life is going to be turned upside down. You don't know when, some of the hardships of life are really going to hit you. And this was when I had just started becoming, like the Fire Council president. I'm a newbie on the board, all of these amazing things are going on in my life. And it's like, what are we going to do? How are we going to navigate this? And, I was very lucky that the organization in which I work and members of the GCAA and of our industry just poured in, like whether it was funds or whether it was support or whether it was kind words or cards or flowers. I was more overwhelmed and just with emotion of the love and the care and the sympathy that came from everyone, which really allowed for me to be able to focus on the positive more so than the negative. And it really allowed for my family and I to really get through that difficult time. And it's like, I can't really tell you of any other industry, that really allows for us to do that and to come together, no matter what quote unquote side. I wish we would lose that, but no matter what side it is that you're on, right? Like, because whether you're a supplier or owner operator, we're all coming together for one thing, and that is the resident and the quality experience, and to protect this industry that we love. And when we look at it that way, it's like, I feel as though that we can remove, some of these lines sometimes and conversations that I hear sometimes that kind of divide us. And it's like, we're all friends, we're all in this together. We're all trying to figure it out together on a day-to-day basis. And, I can't think of a better place that supports you, and really allows for you to be able to go from leasing agent today to, who knows tomorrow. It's an amazing thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I just really want us to continue to focus in and hone in on that.
Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm grateful to hear that your multifamily family stepped up.
Oh yes, and I love that the multifamily family. Like it's a real family. Like
Yeah.
even my boyfriend was like, I thought these were just people that you just work with. I'm like, no, like they're really like family. Like they really care and really look out for us. And I've had these friendships at least going on a decade now, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in any other industry where you are allowed to be able to tap into your passions and tap into your resources and build these connections and really just make a name for yourself. It is a one of a kind.
It is one of a kind. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
can't say anything else. You said it all. Well, listen, I feel like there's a few other things that I would like to talk to you about, but maybe we save those for a future episode.
Sure.
Before I let you go, we have a tradition here on the Multifamily Mind where we ask our guests the same question.
Okay.
We use the word audacious.
Audacious.
And
okay.
we define audacious as extremely bold, daring, fearless, kind of like an audacious explorer who, no matter what everybody else says, they're going to go do that, climb that mountain or whatever. So from your perspective, and I'm interested to hear what your answer is going to be. What's your most audacious take for multifamily right now?
I would say be audaciously you. Be audaciously you. Dare to be different. I believe it was Janis Joplin that said, "You're born an original, don't die a copy." And if you can be yourself every single day, do that.
Wow, that's powerful. Because when you think about how many people are struggling through their life to be just like somebody else,
yes,
when they were put on this world to be authentically who they are, why would you want to be anything else? I love it.
Why?
I love it. And while we were talking and wrapping things up, I thought of something, and I think that this will be my mantra going forward. SHRM may have removed the E, but it's going to become a silent E.
Yes.
Because if we do the right thing, and if we partner the way that we should as a human race, and if we respect each other and see people for who they are and appreciate our differences, we may not agree, and that's okay. You don't have to agree. Just allow me to have my view and my opinion. That's fine.
Right.
But if we all did that, we wouldn't need to be promoting E. It would just be a silent part of the equation. So
it would be automatically and organically understood as much as possible.
So cool. Well, I have certainly enjoyed our time together. I hope that you have as well, Liz. It's been great.
I did. The pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Yeah, so excited to have you. And please let me know if we can have you back, because I'd love to explore some other parts of the conversation with you too. So
most definitely. It would be my pleasure.
Great. Well, I'm Steve Wunsch. This has been the Multifamily Mind, brought to you by Sales Mail, the easiest way to send personalized video through text, email, and CRM. I'd like to thank my guest, Liz Newkirk, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Multifamily Mind podcast, brought to you by Sales Mail, the easiest way to send personalized video via email, text, and CRM. To learn more, go to salesmail.com. And remember, always be audacious. Until next time, I'm Steve Wunsch. Have a great week.